Captain Li Huan stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the large front window. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, mapping new systems near Vega. It was supposed to be a simple mission: take pictures, collect data, and return home. Nothing exciting ever happened on these trips. "Captain, we have something strange on the sensors," said Park Nara from her seat at the communications station. She was young, only 25, but very good at her job. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to understand what she was seeing. Li Huan walked over to look at her screen. "What is it, a ship, sir? But it's huge, much bigger than anything we've ever built." Park Nara pointed at the dots on her screen. "It's not moving, just floating in space." The captain looked at the data. The ship was indeed massive, at least 5 times longer than the New Horizon. It was shaped like a long knife with sharp edges. Dark metal covered its surface, and no lights were visible anywhere on it. "Is it dead?" asked Kim Tae, the chief engineer. He was a short, stocky man who always worried about everything. "Maybe it's been floating here for years." "I don't think so," Park Nara said, adjusting her instruments. "I'm getting very weak energy. Readings. Something is still working inside." Li Huan made his decision quickly. "Take us closer, but keep our weapons ready, just in case." The New Horizon moved slowly toward the alien ship. As they got closer, everyone on the bridge could see how enormous it really was. The human ship looked like a small toy next to it. The alien vessel was covered in strange symbols and had weapons that looked very advanced. Captain Park Nara said, her voice excited, "I'm getting a signal. It's very weak, but it's definitely a communication attempt. Put it on the main screen." The screen filled with static, then cleared to show something that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. A huge reptilian face stared back at them. The creature had golden eyes, sharp teeth, and scales that looked like armor. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rumbling. "Unknown vessel," the alien said in perfect English, though the words sounded strange in its mouth. "You will state your purpose or be destroyed." Li Huan stepped forward. He had trained for this moment his whole life, but his heart was still beating fast. "This is Captain Li Huan of the human exploration ship New Horizon. We detected your vessel and came to offer assistance." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Assistance? You are small creatures in a small ship. What assistance could you possibly offer?" "We have medical supplies and repair equipment. Our scanners show that your ship is damaged." The alien disappeared from the screen for a moment. Li Huan could hear voices talking in a language that sounded like growling and clicking. When the alien returned, it looked puzzled. "I am Commander Gorth of the Vorthok Empire. Your offer is ... unexpected. Most species flee when they encounter us." "We're not most species," Li Huan said simply. Gorth stared at him for a long moment. "You may approach, but know that any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." Communication ended. Li Huan turned to his crew. "Kim Tae, prepare the medical bay. Park Nara, keep trying to understand their language. Everyone else, stay alert." As the New Horizon docked with the alien ship, Li Huan could see the damage up close. Large holes had been torn in the hull, and several weapon systems were completely destroyed. Whatever had attacked this ship must have been incredibly powerful. The airlock opened, and Commander Gorth stepped through. Li Huan had thought he was prepared, but seeing the alien in person was shocking. Gorth was over 3 meters tall, with thick arms and legs covered in natural armor. His claws could probably cut through steel, and his teeth looked like they could bite through bone. "Captain Li Huan," Gorth said, his voice echoing in the small corridor. "I am ... surprised by your appearance." "How so?" "You are very small, and you looked fragile. Your world must be very gentle to produce such creatures." Li Huan smiled. "Earth has its challenges, but we manage." Gorth made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth? Yes, we know of your world. It is marked in our charts as a garden world. It's perfect weather, no dangerous predators, gentle gravity, a paradise. I suppose it might seem that way to you. What is your world like?" "Vorthok Prime has gravity 3 times stronger than yours. The ground shakes constantly from earthquakes. Storms can tear mountains apart. Creatures hunt there that would eat your entire species for breakfast. Gorth's eyes seemed to glow with pride. Only the strongest survive. Dr. Song Myung arrived with her medical team. She was a small woman, even by human standards, and she looked tiny next to the massive alien. But she showed no fear as she approached. Commander Gorth, I'm Dr. Song. I understand you have injured crew members. Gorth looked down at her with something like amazement. You would treat warriors of the Vorthok Empire? Okay. Even though we could crush you without effort. Of course, that's what doctors do. The alien commander was quiet for a moment. Your species is very strange. Follow me. As they walked through the Vorthok ship, Li Wan was amazed by everything he saw. The corridors were huge, built for creatures much larger than humans. The walls were covered in carvings that showed great battles and victories. Everything was made of materials that looked incredibly strong. They entered a large room where several Vorthok warriors lay on beds that were more like stone slabs. Even injured, they were impressive. Their muscles were bigger than tree trunks, and their scales gleamed like metal. Dr. Song immediately went to work, scanning the injured aliens with her instruments. These readings are incredible, she said to Li Wan quietly. Their bone density is off the charts. Their muscle fibers are unlike anything I've ever seen. One of the injured warriors tried to sit up and accidentally grabbed the edge of his bed. The solid metal frame crumpled in his grip like paper. He looked embarrassed. Sorry, he said in broken English. Still weak from injury. Doctor? Song stared. At the destroyed bed frame, that's you being weak. Commander Gorth nodded. Brock is still recovering. At full strength, he could lift your entire ship. Kim Tae, who had been examining the Vorthok ship's systems, approached the captain. Sir, their technology is amazing, but it's also very different from ours. They build everything to be incredibly strong but not very flexible. What do you mean? Their computers are powerful, but they only do exactly what they're programmed to do. Their weapons are devastating, but they can't adapt to new situations. Everything is built for direct, overwhelming force. Li Wan nodded thoughtfully. It made sense. Species that had evolved on a world where only the strongest survived would build everything the same way. Captain Parknera called from her portable communicator. I'm picking up something on the long-range sensors. It's multiple ships heading this way fast. Commander Gorth's expression changed immediately. His eyes widened with something that looked like fear. How many ships? At least 50, maybe more. They're big, but they don't match any design in our databases. Gorth roared something in his own language, and all the Vorthok warriors tried to stand, even the injured ones. The Devourers, he said, his voice filled with dread. They have found us. Who are the Devourers? Li Wan asked. Gorth replied, They are the enemy that destroyed our fleet, machines that consume everything in their path. If they reach this system, all life here will end. Li Huan looked at his small crew, then at the massive alien warriors who were clearly terrified of this approaching threat. Whatever was coming, it was powerful enough to frighten beings who could crush starships with their bare hands. How long do we have? He asked. 6 hours? Maybe less? Li Wan made another quick decision. Then we better get ready. Parknara, send a message to Earth. Tell them what we've found. Kim Tae, see if you can get their ship working. Dr. Song, patch up as many of their crew as you can. Captain Gorth said, You should flee. Your small ship cannot stand against the Devourers. Maybe not, Li Wan said. But we're not running away. That's not what humans do. Commander Gorth stared at him with those golden eyes. For the first time since they had met, the massive alien warrior looked truly surprised. Dr. Song Myung had seen many injured people in her career, but nothing had prepared her for treating the Vorthok warriors. She stood next to Brock, the warrior who had crushed the bed frame, and stared at her scanner readings in amazement. Can't be right, she said to herself, checking the device again. The numbers were the same. Brock's bones were 3 times denser than human bones and harder than most metals. His heart was the size of a basketball and pumped blood through vessels that could handle pressure that would kill a human instantly. Is something wrong, small doctor? Brock asked, his deep voice rumbling through the medical bay. No, everything is fine. It's just... ... Your body is incredible. How do you even move with bones this heavy? Brock flexed his arm slightly, and Dr. Song could see muscles moving under his scales like steel cables. On Vorthok Prime, we must be strong or we die. The gravity pulls us down with 3 times the force of your world. The air is thick and hard to breathe. Every day is a battle to survive. Dr. Song nodded, but she was still confused. But how do you eat? What do you drink? We hunt the great beasts that live in the deep caves, creatures with teeth like swords and claws like spears. The water on our world is filled with acid that would burn through your skin in seconds. And this is normal for you? Of course, children learn to fight before they learn to walk. If they're too weak, they do not live to see their first year. Dr. Song felt a chill run down her spine. The Vorthok lived in conditions that would kill humans in minutes, and they thought it was normal. She continued her examination, finding more incredible things. Brock's nervous system processed information faster than any computer she knew. His reflexes were so quick that he could catch bullets fired from a gun. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Cho Sung was watching the other Vorthok warriors with great interest. As the ship's security chief, he was trained to evaluate threats and combat abilities. What he saw made him very worried. One warrior named Krell was trying to drink water from a human cup. The cup was made of strong plastic that could survive. Being dropped from a building, Krell barely squeezed his fingers, and the cup crumbled into tiny pieces. "Sorry," Krell said, looking embarrassed. "I forgot how weak your materials are." When he stood up, the floor made a creaking sound under his weight. "Colonel Cho," Captain Li Huan said, walking over to him. "What do you think?" Cho Sung shook his head. "Captain, any one of these warriors could tear our ship apart with their bare hands. According to Commander Gorth, these are the weak ones. They're still recovering from injuries." "How strong are they at full health?" "I don't want to think about it." Navigation Officer Yoon Jae had been studying the star charts that the Vorthok had shared with them. He was a quiet man who loved numbers and maps, and what he found made him very excited. "Captain," he called out, "you need to see this?" Li Wan walked over to Yoon Jae's station. The screen showed a map of the galaxy with different colored dots, marking various worlds. "What am I looking at?" "The Vorthok star charts. See these red dots? Those are worlds they mark as Deathworlds, places so dangerous that even they won't go there." And Yoon Jae pointed to several red dots. "I've been comparing them to our own charts, Captain. At least half of these Deathworlds are actually very similar to Earth. Some have the same gravity, the same atmosphere, even the same temperature ranges." Li Huan stared at the screen. "You're saying that what they consider deadly, we might consider normal?" "Exactly. Look at this." Yoon Jae brought up another chart. "This green dot is marked as a paradise world in their database. According to our scans, it has gravity twice as strong as Earth, temperatures that reach 200 degrees, and an atmosphere that would poison us in minutes. So their idea of paradise is our idea of hell." "Yes, sir." "And our idea of paradise is probably there. The idea of... well, I don't think they have a word for a place that easy to live in." Dr. Song had finished her examination of the wounded warriors and was now talking to Commander Gorth. She was amazed by what she had learned. "Commander, I have to ask you something. You said our world is marked as a garden world in your charts. What exactly does that mean?" Gorth looked down at her with his golden eyes. "It means a world where life is so easy that inhabitants become soft and weak. No challenges, no threats, no need to become strong. But Earth does have challenges. We have storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals." Gorth made that sound that might have been laughter. "Dr. Song, I have studied your world's data. Your strongest storms barely move air around. Your earthquakes are so weak that most of your people sleep through them. Your most dangerous animals are smaller than our younglings. What about our weather? We have places where it gets very hot or very cold. Your hottest places are cooler than a mild day on Vorthok Prime. Your coldest places are warmer than our tropical regions." Dr. Song was quiet for a moment. "Then how do you explain humans? If our world is so easy, why are we strong enough to travel through space and build starships? This question seemed to puzzle Gorth. That is ... a good question. Most species from garden worlds never leave their planets. They're too weak and too afraid. But humans are different. You build ships and explore dangerous places. You even offered to help us fight the Devourers. So maybe our world isn't as easy as you think. Perhaps not, Gorth said slowly. Tell me, what is the most dangerous thing on your world? Dr. Song thought. For a moment, other humans, probably you fight each other. Sometimes we have wars, conflicts, competition. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. Gorth's eyes widened. You mean your species fights itself for survival? In a way, yes. We compete for resources, territory, ideas. It's made us very good at solving problems and adapting to new situations. Fascinating. On Vorthok Prime, we fight the environment and the creatures that live there, but we rarely fight each other. We must work together to survive. Kim Tae had been working on the Vorthok ship systems and had made several interesting discoveries. He found Captain Li Huan in the corridor between the two ships. Captain, I've been studying their technology. It's incredible, but also very different from ours. How so? Everything is built to be incredibly strong and powerful. Their computers can process huge amounts of data, but they can only do exactly what they're programmed to do. Their weapons can destroy entire planets, but they can't adjust to new targets quickly. What does that mean for us? It means they're designed for straightforward problems. If you need to lift something heavy, break something strong, or destroy something big, their technology is perfect. But if you need to adapt, improvise, or solve a completely new problem, they're not as good at that. Exactly. I think it's because of their world. On Vorthok Prime, the challenges are always the same. Survive the gravity, avoid the predators, find food and water. So they built technology to handle those specific problems very well. But Earth's challenges are different. Yes, sir, on Earth the challenges are always changing. Weather patterns shift, new diseases appear, resources run out. We've had to become very good at adapting to new situations. Park Nara had been listening to Vorthok communications and had learned some disturbing facts about the approaching enemy. Captain, she said, I've been analyzing the Vorthok battle records from their fight with the Devourers. The results are not good. How bad? They lost 90% of their fleet in the first battle. These warriors are some of the only survivors. How is that possible? These Vorthok are incredibly strong. That's just it, sir. The Devourers don't fight. Like living beings, they're machines, and they use pure mathematics to win battles. They calculate exactly how much force is needed to destroy a target, then use exactly that amount. It's no more, no less. And that defeated the Vorthok. The Vorthok fight with honor and courage. They charge directly at their enemies and try to overpower them with strength. Against most enemies, this works perfectly. But the Devourers don't have emotions or fear. They can't be intimidated or confused. They just calculate and destroy. Lieutenant Colonel Cho Sung had been thinking about the tactical situation. Captain, I think I understand the problem. The Vorthok are like a very sharp sword, perfect for cutting through armor or defeating a strong enemy. But the Devourers are like water. They flow around obstacles and find weak points. So what do? Need to be something the Devourers haven't seen before? Something that doesn't fit their calculations? Commander Gorth approached the group of humans. Captain Li Huan, I must ask you again to leave. The Devourers will be here soon, and your small ship cannot survive. Commander, can I ask you something? In all your battles, have you ever fought an enemy that used tricks or deception? Gorth looked puzzled. Tricks? Deception? These are the tools of cowards. Warriors fight with strength and honor. But what if tricks and deception could save lives? What if being sneaky could defeat an enemy that strength cannot? I do not understand. Dr. Song stepped forward. Commander, on Earth, we have a saying. The pen is mightier than the sword. It means that sometimes intelligence is more powerful than strength, but intelligence without strength is useless. Maybe Li Huan said, strength without intelligence can be defeated by someone who is smart enough to avoid it. Gorth stared at the small group of humans, these strange creatures from a world he had thought was too easy to produce real warriors. But they had traveled through space to help strangers, and they were not running away from an enemy that had destroyed his mighty fleet. Perhaps, he said slowly, there is more than one way to be strong. The main conference room of the New Horizon had never held so many different beings before. Captain Li Wan sat at the head of the table with his crew around him. Commander Gorth stood at the other end, too large for any human chair. His remaining warriors lined the walls, their golden eyes watching everything carefully. Commander Li Wan said, "We need to know everything about the Devourers. If we're going to help you fight them, we need to understand what we're facing." Gorth's expression grew dark. The Devourers are older than both our species. They are not alive in the way we understand life. They are machines, but not simple ones. They think, they plan, they learn. "Where did they come from?" asked Dr. Song. "No one knows. They appear in records from many different worlds, always the same story. They arrive in large fleets, consume everything in a star system, then move on to the next one. Into more of themselves." Park Nara leaned forward. "What do you mean they consume everything?" "Everything," Gorth said simply. "Planets, moons, asteroids, even the stars themselves. They break down matter at the atomic level and use it to build more ships, more weapons, more Devourers." Kim Tae felt his stomach turn cold. How many star systems have they destroyed? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. They were active long before the Vorthok Empire existed. Then, about 5,000 years ago, they simply stopped. No one knew why. Many believed they were dead or had left this part of the galaxy. "But they're back now," said Lieutenant Colonel Cho Sung. "Yes. 3 months ago, they appeared at the edge of our territory. We sent our greatest fleet to stop them." Gorth's voice became quiet. "Of 300 ships, only 12 escaped. Of 50,000 warriors, only a few hundred survived." The room was silent. The humans looked at each other, trying to understand the scale of the disaster. These mighty Vorthok warriors, who could crush starships with their bare hands, had been almost completely destroyed. "Show us," said Captain Li Wan. Gorth nodded to one of his warriors, who activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared showing the battle from the Vorthok perspective. The Aphora fleet was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. The ships were dark and angular, covered in sharp edges and strange patterns. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish swimming through space. "How big are they?" asked Yunjae. "The smallest ships are twice the size of your vessel. The largest are bigger than cities. But size is not their greatest weapon." The hologram showed the battle beginning. The Vorthok fleet charged forward in a wedge formation, their weapons blazing. It was a sight to inspire fear in any enemy. Hundreds of massive warships attacking with overwhelming force. But the Devourers didn't retreat or panic. They simply adjusted their formation and began to fire back. Their weapons were different from anything the humans had seen. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired streams of something that looked like liquid metal. "What are those weapons?" asked Kim Tae. "Conversion beams," Gorth explained. "They don't just destroy matter, they change it. Everything they touch becomes part of them. Watch." The hologram showed a Vorthok battleship being hit by one of the conversion beams. The mighty vessel didn't explode or break apart. Instead, it began to change. The hull shifted and flowed like water, reforming into the same angular shape as the Devourer ships. "They turned your ship into one of theirs?" Dr. Song asked in horror. "Yes, and everyone inside was converted as well. The warriors, the crew, everything became part of the Devourer collective." "So they're not just destroying your people," said Li Wan. "They're making them into enemies." "Exactly. The more they fight, the stronger they become. Every ship they convert adds to their fleet. Every warrior they capture adds to their knowledge." The hologram continued, showing the Vorthok fleet being systematically destroyed. The humans watched in shocked silence as ship after ship was converted or destroyed. The Vorthok fought bravely, but their direct attack style was perfectly countered by the Devourer's mathematical precision. "How did any of you escape?" asked Cho Sung. Commander Gorth made a difficult choice, said Brock, the warrior who had crushed the bed frame. He ordered the retreat when our losses became too great. Many called me a coward, Gorth said quietly. But I knew that if we all died, no one would warn the rest of the galaxy. You made the right choice, Li Wan said firmly. A good commander knows when to fight and when to preserve his people. Communications specialist Kong Hajin had been quietly analyzing the battle data while the others talked. She was young and shy, but very good with computers and tactical analysis. Captain, she said, I've been studying their attack patterns. I think I see something interesting. What is it? The Devourers are incredibly efficient. They use exactly the right amount of force to destroy each target, no more and no less. Their formations are mathematically perfect. Their timing is precise, down to the microsecond. That sounds like a good thing for them. It is, but it might also be a weakness. They're so focused on efficiency that they don't waste any energy on things that don't serve their immediate purpose. Gorth looked puzzled. How is efficiency a weakness? Because it means they're predictable, Kong Haijin explained. They do things the same way every time because it's the most efficient way. But what if someone did something completely inefficient? Something that didn't make mathematical sense? You mean like a trick or deception? Asked Parknara. Exactly. In the battle records, I can see that the Devourers always responded to threats in the same way. They calculated the most efficient response and used it. But what if there was no efficient response? What if they had to choose between multiple bad options? Kim Tae was beginning to understand. It's like a computer virus. If you give a computer a problem it can't solve, it might freeze up or make mistakes. Off. But the Devourers aren't simple computers, Gorth protested. They're very advanced machines. Advanced, yes, said Kang Haijin, but they're still machines. They still think like machines. And machines don't understand things like sacrifice, loyalty, or doing something stupid for a good reason. Dr. Song nodded. On Earth, we have a saying, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. It means that even the best plans can fail because of unexpected events. But how do you plan for the unexpected? Asked one of the Vorthok warriors. Asked, you don't. Plan for it, said Li Wan. You adapt to it. That's what humans are good at, changing our plans when new information comes in. Gorth was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what he had heard. In our military, we have detailed plans for every situation. Our warriors train for years to follow these plans perfectly. That works well against most enemies, Chosun said. But the Devourers can predict your plans because they're logical and efficient. So what do you suggest we need to be? Illogical and inefficient, Li Huan said. We need to do things that don't make sense from a mathematical perspective. Like what? Like a small, weak ship offering to help warriors who could crush it with their bare hands, said Dr. Song with a smile. This made Gorth pause. That was not logical. Exactly. And it confused you, didn't it? Yeah. You didn't know how to respond because it didn't fit your expectations. Yes, that's true. Park Nara had been monitoring the long-range sensors. Captain, the Devourer fleet is getting closer. They'll be here in 3 hours. How many ships? At least 60, maybe more. They're moving in the same formation that defeated the Vorthok. Gorth stood up straighter. Then we must prepare for battle. My warriors will fight. To the last breath, Commander Li Wan said. What if we don't fight them the way they expect? What do you mean, what if we run away? Every Vorthok in the room made sounds of shock and anger. Running away from a fight was the worst possible dishonor in their culture. Captain Li Wan Gorth said stiffly. Vorthok warriors do not flee from battle. I'm not suggesting we flee forever. I'm suggesting we make them chase us. Why would we do that? Because it's inefficient. It wastes time and energy. It forces them to split their attention between chasing us and maintaining their formation. Kong. Haijin looked up from her analysis. Captain, that might actually work. If we can make them chase us through an asteroid field or around a planet, they'll have to break their perfect formation. And once their formation is broken, They'll be less efficient, more vulnerable. Gorth looked at his warriors, then back at the humans. You want us to lead the destroyers of worlds on a chase through space? That's exactly what I want, Li Wan said. We'll be the bait, and they'll be the fish. And what happens when they catch us? That's when we spring the trap. What trap, Li? Wan smiled. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out as we go. Gorth stared at him in amazement. You want to fight the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy, and you don't even have a plan? I have the beginning of a plan. The rest will improvise. That's insane. Yes, Li Huan agreed. Completely insane. So insane that a logical, efficient machine intelligence would never expect it. For the first time since the humans had met him, Commander Gorth smiled. It was a frightening expression on his reptilian face, showing rows of sharp teeth. Captain Li Huan, he said, you may be the craziest being I have ever met, but you might also be exactly what we need. Does that mean you'll help us? It means I'll follow you. The New Horizon raced through space toward Earth, with the damaged Vorthok ship following close behind. Captain Li Huan had sent an emergency message to Earth Command 3 hours ago. Now, as they approached the Sol system, they could see the response to that message. Captain Parknara said from her communications station, I'm receiving signals from over 200 human ships. The entire defense fleet is mobilizing. We're going to need everyone. The view screen showed Earth's orbital defense network. Coming to life, space stations that had been quiet for decades were powering up their weapons. Ships that had been used for cargo runs were being fitted with military equipment. Even civilian vessels were joining the fleet. Commander Gorth stood behind the captain's chair, watching the preparations with interest. Your people move quickly, he said, but these ships are very small compared to Devourer vessels. Size isn't everything, Li Wan replied. Sometimes being small and fast is better than being big and slow. Admiral Nam Hyensu appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong and confident. Captain Li, your message was ... disturbing. Are you certain about these Devourers? Yes, sir. Commander Gorth has battle records that show their capabilities. They're unlike anything we've ever faced. And you believe this plan of yours will work? I believe it's our best chance, sir. Traditional tactics failed against them. We need to try something different. Admiral Nem looked past Li Huan to Commander Gorth. And you trust these aliens? With my life, sir. They're warriors who lost everything fighting this enemy. They want to stop the Devourers as much as we do. Very well. Dr. Lim Sujin has been studying the data you sent. She's made some interesting discoveries. The screen split to show a young woman in a laboratory coat. Dr. Lim had short black hair and wore thick glasses that made her eyes look very large. She was holding a piece of twisted metal. Captain Li, I've been analyzing the Devourer technology samples from the Vorthok ship. The conversion process they use has a weakness. What kind of weakness? Asked Dr. Song. The conversion? Beams work by breaking down matter at the molecular level and rebuilding it according to Devourer patterns. But the process takes time, about 30 seconds for complete conversion. During that time, the target is vulnerable. Vulnerable how? The partially converted matter is unstable. If you hit it with the right kind of energy pulse, it explodes. Instead of converting, Commander Gorth leaned forward. You mean we can make their own weapons work against them? Exactly. But timing is critical. Too early and the pulse does nothing. Too late and the conversion is complete. Engineer Shindong Hein appeared on another part of the screen. He was a thin man with nervous hands that never stopped moving. I've been working on modifications to our ships based on this discovery. We can install pulse generators that will detonate anything that's being converted. How long will the modifications take? Asked Li Wan. 6 hours for the larger ships. It's 2 hours for fighters and small vessels. We don't have 6 hours. The Devourers will be here soon. Then we focus on the small ships first, said Admiral Nam. Captain, your plan calls for using fighters and scouts as bait. We'll modify as many as possible. Kim Tae had been listening carefully. Sir, I have an idea about the larger ships. What if we don't modify them? What if we use them exactly as they are? Explain.
At.
The Devourers expect us to fight efficiently. But what if some of our ships deliberately get hit by conversion beams? What if we let them start converting, then trigger the explosion at just the right moment? Everyone stared at him. Commander Gorth was the first to speak. Want your ships to sacrifice themselves, not sacrifice bait. We use the conversion process as a weapon. One ship gets hit, waits until the last possible second, then explodes and takes out several Devourer ships. That's incredibly dangerous, said Dr. Song. The timing would have to be perfect. It's also completely insane, added Park Nara, which means the Devourers won't expect it. Admiral Nam was quiet for a moment. How many volunteers would we need for this suicide mission? It's not suicide, Sir, Kim Tae said quickly. The crews can evacuate before the explosion. Small escape pods that are too small for the Devourers to target efficiently. You're asking people to abandon their ships and hope they survive in tiny pods while a space battle rages around them. Yes, sir.
Right.
And you think people will volunteer? For this, before Kim Tae could answer, Park Nara spoke up. I'll do it, sir. If it can save Earth and stop the Devourers, I'll do it. So will I, said Dr. Song. Mate, added Yoon Jae. One by one, the entire crew of the New Horizon volunteered. Admiral Nam looked surprised, but Commander Gorth was amazed. Your people would truly sacrifice their ships to protect others? Gorth asked. Of course, Li Huan said simply. That's what we do. Dr. Lim spoke up from her laboratory. Admiral, I have another idea. What if we don't just use our ships as bait? What if we use asteroids? Asteroids. The asteroid belt between. Mars and Jupiter has millions of rocks. We could attach simple conversion pulse generators to them, then use gravity tugs to push them into the Devourer fleet path. Engineer Shin got excited. That could work. The Devourers would try to convert the asteroids to get them out of the way. But when they do, ... boom, finished Kim Tae. Thousands of explosions right in the middle of their fleet.
How long would
that take to set up? Asked Admiral Nam. We're already working on it, Dr. Lim said. General Park Sun-ho has mobilized every mining ship and cargo hauler in the system. They're attaching pulse generators to asteroids as fast as they can. Screen changed to show General Park, a stern-looking woman in military uniform. She was standing in what looked like a command center with dozens of officers working at computers behind her. Captain Lee, we have mining crews working around the clock. In 12 hours, we'll have a minefield of rigged asteroids stretching across 3 million kilometers of space. Will that be enough? Asked Gorth. We hope so. But we need the Devourers to chase our ships into the field. That's where your part of the plan comes in. Li Huan nodded. We lead them through the asteroid belt, triggering explosions as we go. The chaos should break up their formation and give our main fleet a chance to attack. And if the plan fails, we improvise. We adapt. We find another way. Kung Hejin had been working at her station throughout the conversation. Captain, I've been analyzing Devourer communication patterns from the Vorthok battle records. I think I found something important. Is it they don't just communicate with radio signals. They use quantum entanglement for instant communication across their entire fleet. It's how they coordinate so perfectly. Is there a way to disrupt it? Maybe. If we can generate the right kind of quantum interference, we might be able to jam their communications, but it would require a massive amount of energy. Double quotes, Dr. Lim looked thoughtful. What about the sun? Could we use solar energy? Theoretically, yes. But we'd need to build a quantum resonance amplifier the size of a space station. How long would that take? Months, maybe years. Everyone looked disappointed until Kim Tae spoke up. What if we don't build one? What if we turn something that already exists into an amplifier? Like what? The lunar mining facility. It has massive power collectors and transmission arrays. With the right modifications, Engineer Shin was already working on his computer. It could work. The lunar facility has enough power generation to run a small city. If we reconfigure the transmission arrays and add quantum resonance coils, ... How long? Asked Admiral Name. Hours, maybe 10. Do it. Commander Gorth had been listening to all these plans with growing amazement. Captain Lee, your people are planning to use asteroids as bombs, sacrifice ships as weapons, and turn a mining facility into a communication jammer, all in less than 12 hours. That's right. This level of improvisation and adaptation, I have never seen anything like it. On Vorthok Prime, such plans would take months to develop and approve. We don't have months, Lee Wan said. We have hours. So we work with what we have and figure out the rest as we go. But what if something goes wrong? What if one of these plans fails? Dr. Song smiled. Then we try something else. That's what humans do. We fail, we learn, we try again. Even in the middle of a battle? Especially in the middle of a battle? Park Nara looked up from her sensors. Captain, I'm detecting the Devourer fleet at the edge of the system. They'll be here in 6 hours. Status report on all projects. Admiral, Nam appeared on screen again. Fighter modifications are 60% complete. Asteroid mining is on schedule. The lunar facility modifications have begun. And our volunteer crews? We have more volunteers than we have ships. Everyone wants to help. Commander Gorth shook his massive head. Your species continues to surprise me. You face an enemy that destroyed the greatest fleet in Vorthok history. And your people are competing for the chance to fight them. Fear is natural, Li Huan said. But running away won't solve the problem. Someone has to make a stand. But why you? Why humans? You could evacuate your people to distant systems and avoid this fight entirely. Because if we don't stop them here, they'll just follow us. And then they'll find other worlds, other species. Eventually there will be nowhere left to run. So you fight not just for yourselves, but for people you've never met. That's right. Gorth was quiet for a long moment. I begin to understand why a species from a garden world became strong enough to travel the stars. You did not become strong by fighting your environment. You became strong by fighting for each other. Commander Li Wan said in 6 hours. We're going to show the Devourers something they've never seen before. What's that? What happens when the most illogical species in the galaxy decides to save the universe? On the main screen, the asteroid belt glittered with thousands of tiny lights as mining crews attached pulse generators to rocks that would soon become weapons. Behind them, Earth glowed blue and green in the darkness, unaware that its fate would be decided in the next few hours. The Devourers were coming, confident in their mathematical certainty of victory. They had no way of knowing that they were about to face an enemy that had never read their calculations. The Devourer fleet emerged from the darkness like a swarm of mechanical predators. 67 ships moved in perfect formation toward the inner solar system, their dark hulls reflecting no light. They had calculated that this would be another easy victory, just like all the others. Captain Li Wan stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the enemy approach on his screens. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew what they had to do. Range to target, he asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Park Nara replied. They're moving exactly as predicted. Good signal, the fleet began. Phase 1. Across the solar system, human ships began to move. It looked chaotic and random to anyone watching, but there was a plan behind the madness. Small fighter squadrons scattered in different directions. Cargo ships suddenly changed course. Even civilian vessels seemed to panic and flee. Commander Gorth watched from his position near the captain's chair. Your fleet is breaking apart. Is this part of the plan? It's all part of the plan, Li Huan said calmly. We want them to think we're scared and confused. The Devourer fleet responded exactly as the humans had hoped. Seeing the scattered human ships, they began to spread out to catch them all. Their perfect formations started to stretch and thin as they chased multiple targets. Phase 1 complete, Park Nara reported. The Devourers are pursuing our decoy groups. Excellent. Signal Pilot Officer Han Minsu. Tell him it's time. Han Minsu was 23 years old and had been flying fighters for only 2 years. He was small, even by human standards, but he had reflexes that amazed even the Vorthok. Now. He led a squadron of 12 modified fighters toward the largest Devourer ship. "This is Falcon leader Han Minsu," said over the radio, "beginning our attack run." His fighters dove toward the massive enemy vessel like tiny birds attacking a giant monster. The Devourer ship immediately responded, firing conversion beams. At the approaching humans, Falcon 3 is hit. One pilot shouted, "The beam is starting to convert my ship." "Hey, hold steady, 3, Han," Minsu said. "Wait for my signal." On his screen, Han Minsu watched the timer counting down. The conversion process was 30 seconds. They had to wait 28 seconds before triggering the pulse generator. Too early and nothing would happen. Too late and the pilot would be converted along with his ship. "Now," Han Minsu shouted. The pulse generator fired and Falcon 3 exploded in a burst of brilliant light. But this wasn't a normal explosion. The unstable converted matter created a chain reaction that spread to the Devourer ship itself. Part of the enemy vessel's hull began to dissolve. "It worked," Han Minsu yelled. The conversion explosion damaged their ship. Across the battlefield, other human pilots began using the same tactic. They would let themselves get hit by conversion beams, then trigger explosions at the last possible moment. It was incredibly dangerous, and several pilots waited too long and were lost. But for every human ship that sacrificed itself, at least one Devourer vessel was damaged or destroyed. The Devourer fleet began to show confusion for the first time in their existence. Their mathematical models had no explanation for enemies who would deliberately let themselves be hit by weapons. It didn't make logical sense. Phase 2 began, Li Huan ordered. Deep in the asteroid belt, thousands of rigged asteroids suddenly activated. Mining ships that had been hiding behind the larger rocks began pushing the weaponized asteroids directly into the path of the Devourer fleet. The lead Devourer ships encountered the first wave of asteroids and did exactly what the humans had predicted. They fired conversion beams to clear the rocks out of their way. The explosions were spectacular. Each converted asteroid became a bomb that destroyed everything around it. The perfectly ordered Devourer formation was suddenly filled with explosions, debris, and chaos. "Direct hit on the lead ships," Kang Haijin reported from her sensor station. "At least 12 Devourer vessels are damaged or destroyed." But the Devourers adapted quickly. They began using different weapons to destroy the asteroids instead of converting them. Their formation tightened up, and they started moving more carefully through the minefield. They're learning, Commander Gorth observed. "They won't fall for the same trick twice." "That's okay, Li," Huan said. "We have more tricks." On the dark side of the moon, engineer Shin Donghin made final adjustments to the massive quantum resonance amplifier they had built from the lunar mining facility. "Lunar base to New Horizon," he said over the radio. "The amplifier is ready." "Are you sure this will work?" asked Dr. Song. "About 60% sure," Shin replied. "It's maybe 70%. Those aren't good odds. They're the best we have." Activating the amplifier now. The lunar facility's power collectors turned toward the sun and began drawing massive amounts of solar energy. The quantum resonance coils that Shin had installed started to glow with an eerie blue light. Suddenly, something changed in the Devourer fleet. Ships that had been moving in perfect coordination began to drift slightly out of position. Their response times became slower. Their weapons fire became less accurate. "It's working," Kang Haijin shouted. "Their quantum communication is being disrupted." For the first time in thousands of years, the individual Devourer ships were cut off from their collective intelligence. Each ship had to think and act on its own, without the benefit of shared knowledge and perfect coordination. "Now we hit them with everything we have," Li Huan ordered. Signal Admiral Nam began the main attack. The human fleet, which had been scattered and seemingly in retreat, suddenly turned and attacked with coordinated fury. Ships that had been fleeing reversed course and opened fire. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system activated and began targeting the confused Devourer fleet. Technical Sergeant Kim Do-young was aboard one of the assault ships, manually overriding safety systems that would normally prevent such aggressive tactics. "Safety protocols are for people who want to live through this," he muttered as he pushed the ship's engines beyond their design limits. His ship, along with dozens of others, charged directly at the largest devourer vessels. It was a tactic that went against every rule of space combat. Small ships should never attack large ones directly. But without their perfect coordination, the devourer ships couldn't respond effectively to so many simultaneous attacks. The battle became a chaotic free-for-all. Human ships darted between the larger devourer vessels like angry wasps, firing at close range and then racing away before the enemy could respond. Vorthok warriors, inspired by human courage, abandoned their traditional formation fighting and joined the chaotic melee. Commander Gorth's Lieutenant Herc had initially refused to participate in what he saw as dishonorable combat. But as he watched human pilots sacrifice themselves to save others, something changed in his thinking. "This is not the way warriors should fight," he said to Gorth over their communication system. Gorth replied, watching a human fighter pilot ram his damaged ship into a devourer weapon array to save a civilian transport. "This is how heroes fight." Rek was quiet for a moment, and today we will be heroes instead of warriors. He ordered his ship to join the chaotic battle. Using the unpredictable human tactics instead of traditional Vorthok strategies, other Vorthok commanders followed his example, and soon the entire Allied fleet was fighting in the chaotic, adaptive style that the humans had pioneered. The Devourers found themselves facing something their mathematical minds couldn't process. An enemy that got stronger when things got worse, that fought harder when the odds were against them, and that treated certain defeat as just another problem to be solved. "Devour command ship is taking heavy damage," Pargnara reported. "Their fleet is breaking apart, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Nearly half the human fleet had been destroyed or badly damaged. Hundreds of brave pilots had sacrificed their lives in conversion explosions. The asteroid belt was filled with debris from both human and devourer ships." Captain Communications Officer Pargnara said, her voice shaky with exhaustion. "I'm receiving a signal from the remaining devourer ships. Put it on screen." The image that appeared was unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of the perfect mechanical precision they expected from the devourers, the being on the screen looked ... confused. "Human vessels," the devourer said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Your tactics are ... inefficient, illogical. They should not work." "But they did work," Li Wan replied. "Yes, we do not understand how. Our calculations show that. Your probability of victory was less than 3%. Maybe your calculations were wrong." The devourer was silent for a long moment. "Impossible. Our calculations are perfect. We have used them to conquer thousands of worlds. Then maybe perfect isn't good enough. We ... we do not understand. How can imperfection defeat perfection?" Commander Gorth stepped forward. "Because perfection cannot adapt. Perfection cannot grow. Perfection cannot sacrifice itself for others. These concepts are foreign to us. We will withdraw to analyze this data." "No," Li Wan said firmly. "You will not withdraw to plan another attack. You will leave this galaxy and never return. And if we refuse, then we'll show you more human inefficiency. Will be so illogical and unpredictable that your perfect minds won't be able to handle it." The Devourer seemed to consider this. 6 months after the Great Battle, Captain Li Huan stood on the surface of Kepler-7, a Vorthok colony world that the Devourers had attacked before their defeat. The planet's 3 suns cast strange shadows across the ruined landscape, and the heavy gravity made every step an effort for the human visitors. "The reconstruction is going well," said Commander Gorth, who now wore the insignia of High Admiral of the reformed Vorthok fleet. "Your engineers have taught us much about rapid building techniques." Li Huan looked at the construction sites where human and Vorthok workers labored side by side. Human machines, designed for precision and efficiency, worked alongside Vorthok. Tools built for raw power. The combination was proving more effective than either species had managed alone. "Your people learn quickly," Li Huan said. "Engineer Kim Tae says the Vorthok construction crews have adapted to our methods faster than he expected. We had to learn. The old ways of building took too long. If we had followed traditional Vorthok construction methods, this city would not be finished for 5 years, and now 8 months, maybe less. Dr. Song Mi-young emerged from a medical facility that had been built using hybrid human Vorthok technology. The building was strong enough to withstand the planet's frequent earthquakes, but also flexible enough to adapt to changing needs. The medical exchange program is working wonderfully, she told the 2 commanders. Vorthok healing methods are amazing for treating severe injuries, and our surgical techniques are helping with their more delicate medical problems. Delicate problems? Gorth asked with amusement. You mean the problems we used to solve by ignoring them until they got better or the patient died? That's not medicine. That's just hoping for the best. It worked for thousands of years. It worked for the strong ones. What about the weak ones? Gorth was quiet for a moment. We did not worry about the weak ones. On Vorthok Prime, the weak do not survive. But what if someone is weak in body, but strong in mind? What if they have ideas that could help everyone? This was a new concept for many Vorthok. Their culture had always focused on physical strength and direct action. The idea that someone who couldn't fight might still be valuable was difficult for them to understand. Dr. Lim is a good example, Dr. Song continued. She's small and couldn't win a physical fight against any Vorthok. But her ideas about quantum resonance helped us defeat the Devourers. This is true, Gorth admitted. We are learning that intelligence can be as valuable as strength. Communications Officer Park Nara called to them from a nearby communication station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Nam wants to speak with you, and hi, Admiral Gorth. The holographic display showed Admiral Nam in his office on Earth. Behind him, large windows revealed the busy orbital shipyards where the new joint human Vorthok fleet was being built. Captain, hi, Admiral Nam said. I have news from our deep space monitoring stations. The Devourers have been detected in 3 other galaxies. They appear to be continuing their expansion, but they're avoiding any galaxy that has contact with us. They're afraid of us, Gorth said with satisfaction. Not afraid, Li Wan corrected. Confused? We represent something they can't calculate or predict. To a mind that thinks in pure logic, that makes us dangerous. The important thing is that they're staying away, Admiral Nam said. But we've also detected distress signals from species in nearby galaxies. Some are asking for help. What kind of help? Asked Dr. Song. They want to know how we defeated the Devourers. Some are requesting military assistance. Others want to learn our tactics and strategies. Li Huan looked at Gorth. What do you think, High Admiral? I think the galaxy is a big place with many different species. If we can teach them to work together the way humans and Vorthok have learned to work together, perhaps the Devourers will never be able to return. It won't be easy, Park Nara said. Most species will have their own ways of doing things, their own cultures and traditions. Then we'll have to be flexible, Li Wan said. We'll adapt our methods to work with their strengths. Engineer Kim Tae approached the group, wiping grease from his hands. He had been working on a new type of starship engine that combined human efficiency with Vorthok power. Captain, the first prototype of the new Explorer ships is ready for testing. Want to take a look? They walked to the shipyard where the new vessel waited. It was unlike any ship either species had built before. The hull had the strength and durability of Vorthok engineering, but it was shaped according to human principles of efficiency and speed. The weapon systems could deliver overwhelming force when needed, but they could also be quickly reconfigured for different situations. It's beautiful, Dr. Song said. It's functional, Kim Tae corrected. Beauty is just a bonus. What are you going to call it? Asked Park Nara. Li Huan thought for a moment. The Unity, because it represents what we can accomplish when we work together. Ada Lieutenant Colonel Cho Seung emerged from the ship's interior. He'd been inspecting the security, systems, and tactical capabilities. Captain, this ship is incredible. It has the firepower to destroy a small fleet, but it's also equipped for exploration, diplomacy, and rescue operations. We could use it to contact new species and help them prepare for threats like the Devourers. Or Gorth added, we could use it to hunt down any Devourers that try to return to this galaxy. Hopefully, we won't need to do that, Li Wan said. But it's good to be prepared. Technical Sergeant Kim Du-jong called out from inside the ship. Captain, you need to see this. They entered the Unity to find Kim Du-young standing in what appeared to be a combination command center and meeting room. The space was designed to accommodate both human and Vorthok crew members, with adjustable stations and furniture that could change size as needed. Look at this, Kim Du-young said, pointing to a large table in the center of the room. It's a tactical display that can show real-time information from thousands of different sources. But it's also designed to encourage discussion and cooperation between different species. How so? Asked Dr. Song. The table is round, so no one sits at. The head, everyone is equal. The display can show information in multiple formats simultaneously, so species with different ways of processing data can all understand what's happening. Gorth ran one large clawed finger along the edge of the table. This is wise. Military tradition, the strongest warrior sits at the head of the table and makes all decisions. But we have learned that the best decisions come from many different viewpoints. Exactly, Li Wan said. This ship isn't just designed to fight or explore. It's designed to bring people together. Navigation Officer Yoon Jae looked up from his examination of the ship's star charts. Captain, we've received formal requests for assistance from 12 different species. They all want to establish diplomatic relations and learn about our alliance. 12 species? Gorth looked surprised. Good news usually does, Park Nara said with a smile. So what's our first mission? Asked Dr. Songli. Hwan looked around at his crew, both human and Vorthok, and then at the new ship that represented everything they had learned about cooperation and adaptation. Our first mission is to visit the Centauri system. There's a species there called the Zalani, who've been fighting a civil war for 50 years. They've asked for help in finding a peaceful solution. Civil war. Gorth frowned. Why would we involve ourselves in their internal conflicts? Because maybe we can teach them what we learned, that working together is stronger than fighting alone, and if they don't want to listen, then we try a different approach. We adapt. We find another way. Gorth shook his massive head, but he was smiling. Captain Li Wan, you continue to amaze me. 6 months ago, I thought humans were weak creatures from a soft world. Now I understand that you are the strongest species I have ever met. We're not stronger than you, Gorth. We're just strong in different ways. No, Gorth said firmly. Physical strength can break things. But the strength to bring enemies together as friends, the strength to sacrifice for others, the strength to keep trying when logic says you should give up, that is true power. Dr. Song stepped forward. Hi, Admiral. What will you tell your people about humans when you return to Vorthok Prime? I will tell them that we thought strength came from hard worlds that forge hard warriors, but we were wrong. True strength comes from hearts that refuse to give up, minds that never stop learning, and spirits that will sacrifice everything to protect others. And what will the Vorthok Empire do now? We will learn. We will adapt. We will become partners. With humanity in exploring the galaxy and protecting all the species that call it home, Li Wan looked out through the ship's windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there were thousands of different species, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, their own hopes and fears. Some would become allies quickly. Others would need time to learn trust. A few might even become enemies. But that was okay. Humans had never expected the galaxy to be easy. They had never thought that every problem would have a simple solution. They had learned long ago that the most important battles were won not with weapons or strength, but with patience, understanding, and the willingness to keep trying, even when success seemed impossible. Attention all crew, Li Huan announced over the ship's communication system. This is Captain Li Huan. Today we begin a new mission, not just for humans or Vorthok, but for every species that calls this galaxy home. We're going to show the universe that differences make us stronger, not weaker. He paused, looking at the mixed crew of humans and Vorthok who had gathered to hear his words. Some of you are strong in body, others are strong in mind. Some of you come from worlds where survival is a daily struggle. Others come from places where cooperation is the key to success. But today, we are all part of the same crew, working toward the same goal. What goal is that? Asked a young Vorthok warrior. To prove that no matter how dark the galaxy becomes, no matter what threats emerge from the void, there will always be those willing to stand together and fight for what's right. Gorth stepped forward. In the Vorthok language, we have a saying, a warrior who stands alone is strong. A warrior who stands with others is unstoppable. In English, Li Huan added, we say united we stand, divided we fall. Today, they said together, human and Vorthok voices joining as one, we stand united. The unity lifted off from the surface of Kepler 7, carrying its mixed crew toward the stars. Behind them, the rebuilt colony continued to grow, a symbol of what could be accomplished when different species work together. Ahead of them lay countless worlds and countless challenges. But for the first time in galactic history, those challenges would be met not by one species alone, but by an alliance that had learned the most important lesson of all, that the strength to protect what matters most comes not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to build something better together. The age of cooperation had begun.